from the TTL Makerspace, and today I'm going to teach you how to safely use the bandsaw. There are a few things we do to keep ourselves safe when using the bandsaw. First, we make sure that we're not wearing any loose or dangling clothing. So this includes things like hoodie strings or wide sleeves. If you are wearing long sleeves, make sure to roll them up so they're out of the way. Next, we make sure we put on our safety glasses. And finally, we want to put on our hearing protection. The bandsaw is a general purpose tool and can be used for a lot of different types of cuts. I'm going to focus on the two primary uses of this tool today, and we're going to start with straight cuts. First, we need to set up our blade assembly. We need to make sure that our blade is as covered as much as possible. We're going to do that by lowering this whole assembly down until it's just about 1/4 inch above our material. In order to adjust this, you're first going to have to loosen off this knob right here. And then you can turn this handle, and this raises and lowers this whole guard. So we want to make sure it's down as close as we can get it, about 1/4 inch, even down to 1/8. We don't want it to be touching our material, but we don't want the opening to be so big that our fingers could slip under there. Once you set the guard height, you want to make sure to lock it in place. Before using this machine, you also want to make sure that the blade is sitting between these two roller bearings right here. You want to make sure that it's set directly between and not pulled out in front of them. There's a third bearing up above the two that the blade should be running between. The back side of the blade should actually be riding on the front of this bearing. That's what sets the appropriate depth of the blade. There is another set of roller bearings below the table, and there is a portion of the blade that's exposed. So anytime you're using the bandsaw, you don't want to be reaching your hands under here willy-nilly. Make sure that you take the time to actually see where that assembly is below the table so that you're aware of it. Now, the beauty of the bandsaw is that we can cut straight lines that aren't parallel to something else like we do on the table saw. So if I wanted to cut this diagonal line, I can actually just push it straight into the blade following my line rather than needing to use a reference surface. To turn this machine on, we've got our on button here and our off button here. Now, when you turn the machine off, this compresses, and in order to turn the machine back on, you need to give this a light twist and then push the on button. Be sure to let the machine get up to speed before pushing any material into it. The blade runs on two large wheels. You can see them back here. And it takes a while for them to get up to speed, and it takes them a while to turn off. So never walk away from the machine until you see that the blade has stopped moving. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay. Now, it can be very tempting when you're cutting off small pieces to put your finger in and just kind of clear it out of the way. Never do that. We never want our fingers within about 1 inch of this circle that the blade runs into. Anytime you do need to clear something out of the way, grab something wooden, a small offcut or push stick, and make sure your hands are clear of the blade and push it out of the way. Whenever you're trying to cut a piece off of something that's fairly small, you want to grab a push stick to help you support your material through the cut. I don't have a lot of space on this to keep my fingers in control of the material and still kind of stay in that safe zone. So the push stick is going to help me control the material through the cut without my fingers getting into that danger zone. There we go. The other primary use for the bandsaw is cutting curves, and there are a few different ways to do this using this tool. Now, I can cut a curve by turning my material as I'm pushing it into the blade on the bandsaw. But the minimum radius of the arc that you can achieve is determined by the width of the band. So if you look at the one we have on now, it's 3/4 of an inch. So that means I'm not going to be able to achieve a very tight curve. I'm only going to be able to make quite broad curves. So using the 3/4 inch band, we can achieve a pretty gentle curve. If we want to create a more aggressive curve using the same band, there is another approach we can take. The purpose of the relief cuts is to clear the material out of the way so that the band can take tighter turns. It's kind of hard to explain, so I'm going to show you. Anytime you need to make a cut that you intend to then back out of, that's deeper than the width of your blade, you need to make sure that you turn off the machine, hold onto the material until the blade stops. Then you're going to grab a block and hold it on the front of the blade so that you don't pull the blade out in front of those guide rollers and out of position. Never try to push the blade to make a tighter turn than it can handle. If you're encountering a lot of resistance, straighten out your cut and then make a new plan. Sometimes when we're doing more elaborate cuts on the bandsaw, it can be tempting to move our bodies over to the side and adjust to hold the material in a different way. And while you can shift side to side back here, you never want to be standing next to the blade. It's rare, but sometimes if the blade breaks, it can whip out in this direction, so we never want to be in that path. So make sure that you're standing behind the back edge of the table. If the blade does happen to break while you're using the machine, make sure to just stay calm, turn it off, and then assess. Don't be a big freaking baby. It's fine.
Yeah, don't freak out. It's fine.
Just a blade. On our bandsaw, we have a fence that we can attach if we want parallel lines to an edge of our material. So we put it on back here. We can slide it into position like this. So we can have this fence in two different orientations. We can have it up tall like this if you're cutting thicker stock, but if we're cutting smaller material, I find it easier to just put it on its thinner setting. So if we slide this off, we can then turn this over and slide it into place like this. When we have it in this orientation, we can also get it up closer to the blade. So if we want to cut thin strips, our guard can go up pretty close and it kind of sneaks underneath those bearings. When it's in the taller setting, you can only go as close as just before the bearings. The next thing we need to do in order to set up to make a cut using our fence is measure our distance for our cut. So if I'm gonna look here, I wanna make a 2-inch cut. So I'm gonna scooch it over, and I'm just gonna kind of lightly tighten this in place because I'm gonna have to do some kind of micro adjustments first. So I'm gonna give it a little bit of a tighten. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to square up this fence. So as you might be able to see, this is running off kind of on an angle in this direction. It's not actually parallel to our blade. In order to square up, we are going to use this knob here. And this knob, if we turn it, it changes the angle of the fence. In order to make sure it's actually running parallel to the blade, we're going to double check as we're making this adjustment that this distance up here is the same as this distance up here to this groove. This groove is running parallel to the blade, and if it's the same measurement at multiple points, then we know it's square. You can count on it. There we go. Now I can tighten it fully in place. Now that our fence is parallel to the blade, let's double check our measurement. Perfect. Anytime we're using the fence and it's kind of this thin strip, we're going to need a push stick to help us pass the material between the blade and the fence. It's much too small for our fingers to fit in that space. So I'm gonna keep this handy. And when the back of my material is a couple inches from the blade, I'm gonna grab it and use that to support me through the cut. So remember, when using the bandsaw, make sure that you're wearing the appropriate clothing and protective gear. Always make sure that the guard is dropped so that there's only about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch of space between the rollers and your material. Never push the band to take too sharp of a turn. When backing out of a cut that's deeper than the width of your band, make sure to turn the machine off and support it with a block as you're pulling your material out. Always keep your fingers away from the blade. Use push sticks whenever you're supporting small material or trying to clear out anything around the blade. Keep your body behind the back edge of the table. Never wander around the side. Don't get too comfortable. Don't get too comfortable. Don't get cocky. Don't put your fingers in the blade. No bifurcated fingers. If you're working in the makerspace, remember you're working as part of a community. So if you're unsure about what you're doing, just reach out to the people around you or one of the staff members to give you a hand, and we're always happy to help. Be safe and enjoy your time in the shop.
Yeah, we want to show them off. When people see it, they're like, whoa!